Hi, welcome to Chapter 5, Lesson 1, or this is called Simple and Compound Interest. So, our goal for today is first to illustrate simple and compound interest, to distinguish between simple and compound interest, to compute the interest, maturity value, future value, and present value in a simple interest and compound interest environment, and to solve problems involving simple and compound interests. So first, before we proceed to the calculations, let us first have the definition of terms. So time or term refers to the amount of time in years the money is borrowed or invested. So it also means the length of time between the origin and the maturity dates. Principal or present value, which is symbolized as P, is the amount of money borrowed or invested on the origin date. The rate, or R, is the annual rate, which is usually expressed in percent, is charged by the lender, or this is the rate of increase in the investment. Interest, or I, is the amount paid or earned for the use of money. Simple interest refers to the interest that is computed on the principal and then added to it, while compound interest is the interest computed on the principal and also on the accumulated past interests. And maturity value, or also called future value, is the amount after T years that the lender receives from the borrower on the maturity date. So first, let us discuss simple interest. So, simple interest, denoted by I, is a fixed percentage of the principal. Okay, so this is the total amount invested, paid to a depositor or an investor each year. The principal is left deposit or has been invested. So, simple interest is equal to principal times rate times time, where I stands for the simple interest, P stands for the principal in pesos, R is the interest rate per period of time. This is commonly expressed as percent or a fraction. And T stands for time in years. So this is between the date when the loan is made or the investment and the date it matures or becomes repayable to the lender. So here are some of our important formula. We have I equals P times R times T, or that is interest equals principal times rate times time. Then we have principal is equal to interest over rate times time. Rate is equal to interest over principal times time. And time is equal to interest over principal times rate. So you have to take note of the following formula and you have to remember them always. So let us have a few examples. First, Jane borrowed 100,000 pesos from a bank payable after 18 months at an interest rate of 6%. How much was the interest on the loan? So, solution. First, let us identify what we know. So, we know that 100,000 pesos is our principal amount. Then, here, rate is equal to 6%. So, we can also express that in decimal. So, 6% in decimal is 0.06. And we know that the time is equal to 18 months. But take note, time should be expressed in years. So, to calculate years, given the months, we simply divide it by 12. So that's 18 over 12, or that is 1.5 years. So, using the information that we have, we use the formula I, or interest, equals principal times rate times time, because we are looking for the interest on the loan. So, that is, principal is 100,000 pesos, rate is 0.06, and time is 1.5. So, simply multiply 100,000 by 0.06 by 1.5. So you get 9,000 pesos. So therefore, the interest on the loan is 9,000 pesos. Next. Okay, so we have the next problem. Susan paid an interest of 4,500 pesos for money borrowed at 8% per annum for 9 months. So what is the principal amount? Okay, so this time we're looking for the principal amount. So if you can still remember from the list of our formula, P is equal to I over R times T. So what do we know? So we know that the rate is 8% or 0.08 based on our problem. So we have here 8 per annum. Per annum means yearly. Next, we know that the interest is 4,500 pesos because we have here interest of 4,500. Then, we also know that the time is 9 months. Again, if the time is not given in years, we simply divide it by 12. So, 9 over 12 is 0.75 year or 0.75 years. So, therefore, we use our formula P equals I over R times T. So, we have substitute I, that is 4,500, over rate is 0.08 times our time, that is 0.75. So 4,500 divided by 0.08 times 0.75. Again, multiply first 0.08 by 0.75 before you divide 4,500 by the answer of, or by the product of 0.08 and 0.75. So here we get 75,000 pesos. So therefore, we can say that the principal amount is 75,000 pesos. Next problem. So John borrowed 150,000 pesos from the bank. If he paid an interest of 5,000 pesos for 2 years, what is the rate of interest? So this time, we are looking for the rate of interest. Okay, so to look for the rate, we have the formula R equals I over P times T. So that's rate equals interest over principal times time. So what do we know? So we know that the principal amount is equal to 150,000. Interest is equal to 5,000 based on our problem. We have here 5,000. And the time is 2 years. So we substitute this in our formula. We have I is 5,000 pesos. Okay. Principal amount is 150,000 times time, that is 2. So 5,000 divided by 150,000 times 2. So again, multiply 150,000 times 2 first. Then 5,000 divided by their product. So that's 5,000 divided by 300,000 pesos. That will give you 0.0167, or that is equal to 1.67%. Okay, so 0.0167 is equal to 1.67%. So therefore, we can say that the rate of interest is at 1.67%. Next, Anne borrowed 40,000 pesos from a lending company. How many years was the term of the loan if the total interest was 10,000 pesos at 5%? Okay, so this time we're looking for the term or the time of the loan. So time is equal to interest over principal times rate. So first, what do we know? So we know that the rate is 5% or 0.05 based on our problem. So we have here 5%. Then we also know that the principal amount is 40,000 pesos because this is what she originally borrowed. And the total interest according to the problem is 10,000 pesos. So we substitute all this information in our formula. So that is time equals interest over principal times rate. So that is interest is 10,000 pesos divided by principal is 40,000 pesos times rate, that is 0.05 or 5%. So first we multiply 40,000 by 0.05 before we divide 10,000 by their product. So answer is 5, or that is 5 years. Okay, so therefore the term of the loan is 5 years. Okay, now for more examples, let us complete the table by finding the unknown, whether that's principal, interest, rate, or time. So we have here the table. For letter A, we're looking for the principal amount. Letter B, we're looking for the rate. Letter C, we're looking for the time. And letter D, we're looking for the interest. Okay, first, for letter A, okay, the unknown principal amount can be obtained by using our formula P equals I over R times T. So, we know that the rate in letter A is 2.5%. So, that's 2.5% in decimal is, that is 0.025. So, this in decimal will be 0.025. Okay? Then, the time here is 4 years and the interest is 1,500 pesos. So, substitute that. So, we have 1,500 over, again, as I have said, rate. Okay, rate in decimal form is 0.025 times time, which is 4. So first we multiply 0.025 by 4 before we divide 1,500 by their product. So the answer is 15,000. Therefore, principal amount for letter A is 15,000 pesos. Next, let's proceed to letter B. Okay, so for letter B, okay, the unknown rate, okay, because we're looking for the rate here, can be calculated by using the formula R equals I over P times T. So, we know that for letter B, principal amount is 40,000 pesos, time is 2 years, and interest is 10,000 pesos. So, we have there, interest is 10,000. Then we have principal amount is 40,000 pesos and time is 2 years. So 40,000 times 2 first, then 10,000 pesos divided by 80,000 pesos. So you get 0.125, or that is 12.5%. So the rate for letter B is 12.5%. Letter C, we're looking for time. So the unknown time could be computed by time equals interest over principal times rate. So for letter C, we know that principal amount is 100,000 pesos, rate is 10%, and interest is 1,500. So we substitute that to our given formula. So that is 1,500 divided by principal amount, that's 100,000 pesos, times the rate, 10%. So 10% is 0.01 in decimal. So first we multiply 100,000 by 0.01. So that will give you 10,000. So that's 1,500 divided by 10,000. That will give you 0.15 years. So therefore, the time is 0.15 years. Letter D, we have the unknown simple interest. So we will solve that by getting I equals P times R times T. So principal amount for letter D is 25,000 pesos. Rate is 15%. Time is 3 years. So we simply substitute that to our given formula. So we have here 25,000 pesos times 0.15 times 3. So then we get 11,250. So the simple interest for 3 years is 11,250 at 15%. Okay? So now let us go to the maturity value for simple interest. So again, when we say maturity value, that's the amount after T years. So this is the amount that the lender receives from the borrower on maturity date. So in other words, the maturity value refers to the principal amount plus the simple interest. So it's the total amount. So there are two ways in solving for the maturity or the future value. So another name for maturity value is future value. So F here refers to maturity value or future value. P is the principal amount. I is the simple interest. R is the rate of the interest. T is the term or time in years. So first method, we have future value equals principal plus interest. And method number 2, we have future value equals principal times 1 plus rate times time. So let's have some examples. First, we will find the maturity value of 100,000 pesos. So if this amount is deposited in a bank at an annual simple interest rate of 0.15% after 2 years and after 6 years. So what we know is we're given the principal amount of 100,000 pesos and the rate, which is 0.15%, or in decimals, that is 0.0015. Okay? So we will find first letter A, the maturity value after 2 years. So using method 1, so we will have future value equals principal plus interest. So take note, again, you get interest by multiplying principal times rate times time. So that's 100,000 times 0.0015 times 2. So you get 300. So the interest for, or the simple interest for 2 years is 300. So we go back to method 1. So that is principal plus interest. So principal amount is 100,000 plus interest is 300. So that will give you 100,300. So for method 2, we will use F, or future value equals P, principal amount, times 1 plus RT, or rate times time. So we have 100,000 for P times 1 plus our rate is 0.0015 times time, which is 2. So 0.0015 times 2, that will give you 0.003, plus 1, that will give you 1.003 times 100,000, that is 100,300. Sorry, so this should be 100,300. Okay, so the future value or maturity value after 2 years, so this is 2 years, is 100,300. Let's have letter B, which is for 6 years. So we know again, principal amount is 100,000, rate is 0.15 or 0.0015. So we will solve the maturity value after 6 years. So using method 1, that's F equals P plus I. First, we solve for interest. So that's principal times rate times time. So that will give you 100,000 times 0.0015 times 6, or that is 900. So going back to method 1, that will give you 100,000 plus 900. So that is 100,900 pesos. For method 2, we have future value equals principal times 1 plus rate times time. So that is 100,000 times 1 plus 0.0015 times 6. So that will give you 100,900 pesos. So the future or maturity value after this is 6 years is 100,900. Next, let's proceed to compound interest. So for compound interest, the future value of a compound interest is the interest that is added to the old principal to make a new principal on which interests is gained and is again calculated for the next period. So, compound interest could also be called as interest on interest. Okay, so you have the general formula for a future value for compound interest is A equals P times 1 plus I raised to N. So, I here is equal to J over M and N is equal to M times T. So, A refers to the accumulated amount at the end of N conversion periods. P is the principal amount, or also called the present value. J is the nominal interest rate per year. M is the number of conversion periods per year. I is the rate per conversion period. And N is the total number of conversion periods. Okay, however, when compounded annually, we have the simple formula A equals P times 1 plus R raised to T, where A is the accumulated amount, P is the principal amount or present value, R is the interest rate, and T stands for the time. So, we have here an example. If 10,000 pesos is deposited at an account that offers 2% interest compounded annually, we have two questions. A, how much money will there be in the account after 5 years? And B, how much money will be the total interest? So, to solve, we know that principal amount is equal to 10,000. Rate is 2%, or that is 0.02 in decimals. Time is 5 years. So therefore, we use the formula A equals P times 1 plus R raised to T. So A is 10,000 times 1 plus 0.02 raised to 5. So first, you have to add 1 and 0.02 before you raise that to 5. So that is 10,000 times 1.02 raised to 5. So that will give you 10,000 times 1.10, or that is 11,040 pesos and 81 centavos. So therefore, the future or maturity value after 5 years is 11,040 pesos and 81 cents. Next, for letter B, the total interest. So we could solve the total interest by taking A, which is 11,040 pesos and 81 cents, and P, which is 10,000 pesos. So we could get the interest by subtracting P from A. So that is 11,040.81 minus 10,000. So that will give you 1,040.81, or we could say that the compound interest is 1,040 pesos and 81 centavos. So how about the present value, or P? How do we solve for P in our compound interest? So to solve for the present value P, we have P is equal to future value over 1 plus r raised to t. Or we could have p is equal to future value times 1 plus r raised to negative t. So, p represents the principal or the present value. F is the maturity value or the future value. R is the interest rate. And T is the term or time. So, for example, we have what is the present value of 150,000 due in 9 years if the money is 15% compounded annually. So, we know that F is 150,000. Rate is 15% or that is 0.15 in decimals. And the time is 9 years. So, we put that or we substitute that in our formula F over 1 plus r raised to t. So, that will give you P equals 150,000 over 1 plus 0.15 raised to 9. Okay, we need one more zero here. Okay, so there should be one more zero here. Okay. So, that will give you 42,639.36. Therefore, we can say that the present value is 42,639 pesos and 36 cents. Next example. How much money should a student place in a time deposit in a bank that pays 2.5% compounded annually so that he will have 250,000 after 4 years? So, the goal for this problem is that the student should have 250,000 after 4 years. So, what is asked here is how much should he deposit now? So, that's present value. So, first, we know that F stands for 250,000. Rate is 2.5% or that's 0.025. And time is 4 years. So, we use our formula P equals F over 1 plus R raised to T. So, we substitute F, R, and T. So, that is 250,000. Okay, again, there should be one more zero here. Okay, 250,000 over 1 plus 0.025 raised to 4. So that will give you 226. Wait. So that's 226,487 pesos and 66 centavos. So meaning the student should deposit 226,487 pesos 0.66 centavos in the bank. Okay, so that's all for simple and compound interest. I'll see you for the next lesson. Bye-bye!